thank you so much for being here and saying yes to this interview even while you are traveling. Thank you so much.
No worries, my pleasure.
Okay, so should we start with the interview or should we wait for more people to join in?
No, I think we can get started.
Okay, right. So, hi everyone. First, I would like to introduce Keerthana ma'am, and then I'll proceed with the questions. So, Keerthana ma'am is a writer, journalist, and content curator with a fondness for positivism via thoughts, actions, and alternative therapies. She has worked on the editorial of some of the India's biggest editorial media houses and as a content marketing head in various corporates. She is also the editor of several books of Spark Igniting Minds, including Stories Through My Eyes. An avid traveler and doting mother, she finds inspiration and the energy of positivism through places, people, and her daughters, which she showcases in her blog titled This Short Story.
Thank you.
Welcome, ma'am. Welcome to
Thank
the
you.
interview.
Thank you, Shruti.
And I'm really looking forward to this interview because I'm very sure it's going to be very interesting. Yeah, let me go ahead with that, ma'am. And I'm so glad to share that Keerthana ma'am is the editor of this book. So since you are the editor of this book, ma'am, why don't you give us a gist of this book and how was your experience editing it?
Okay. So, see, mythology is not just part of our culture, it's part of our everyday lives. Like, for instance, in many households down south, they either listen to or they recite the Vishnu Sahasranama every day. And the entire prayer has got words like Bhagavanu Vacha or Arjuna Vacha or Bhishma Vacha, which is God says, Arjuna says, or, Bhishma says. So it's like a dialogue that is there. Similarly, up north, if you see, there are many places, many households where even today they read the Ramayana in the verse form every day. So mythology is like a very, very integral part of our everyday lives. It's not just the cultural part of it. But today, we are at a stage of emotional maturity where we're trying to explore and understand what could have been the actual story behind what was told in the Mahabharata and the Ramayana. Like, all our lives, I think, we've always read a very unidimensional or unidirectional sort of a story. And I'm not just talking about Ramayana, Mahabharata, I mean any epic or any story from the epics. All right. But today we have come to a stage where we want to retell these stories and put it from a different perspective, because for every action there is a reaction. Why are all the Kaurava brothers against the Pandavas, and why are all the Pandava brothers against the Kauravas? At least out of the 101 of them among the Kauravas, somebody would have not been with their brothers. But why is it that they were all there? Did they all have a role to play? Why is it that we do not know all their names? Why only select characters are there? Right? So we are at a stage where we have that kind of emotional maturity to look at things from a different perspective. For instance, it can be Kevin Misal writing the Mahabharata from Karna's perspective. It can be Anand Neelakantan, who's retelling the Mahabharata from the Kauravas' perspective. In his book Ajaya's Part 1, which is called The Roll of the Dice. Or it can be Amish Tripathi, who's retelling the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, not Mahabharata, the Ramayana, Shiva's story. From a very, very different perspective. So, considering this, when Captain Sahana, who's the founder of Spark Publications, when she and I were discussing, we somehow came to a stage where we realized that probably this is something that we can think about as a book. Now, not everybody can write like a near epic, like what an Amish Tripathi does or what an Anand Neelakantan does. But probably we can bring out something because everybody will have different stories to tell about various parts of our mythology. Essentially, we have two major mythologies or maybe three major mythologies. But at the end of the day, we all pick out bits and pieces and read them as separate stories ourselves, right? Like, for instance, the Palace of Illusions is based on one part of the Mahabharata. Ajaya is based on one part of the Ramayana. Okay. And
Right.
like M.T. Vasudevan has written a book called Bhima, where he writes the entire Mahabharata from Bhima's perspective. So there is a
Okay.
360-degree view that, and a lot of very interesting tales and perspectives that would come out. And those are the kind of things you try to bring out in Story Through My Eyes. So that was the genesis of Story Through My Eyes. Like, for instance, if you see the book, there is a story where one of the contributing authors has written about man, like Manav, having a conversation with a Bodhi tree under which the Buddha attained the Buddha. And he talks
Right.
about whether Buddha was the first Buddha, whether it was his wife Yashodhara who should be considered as the first Buddha. There is a story
Hmm.
written by Hiral Koff, where she talks about Krishna being born along with a twin. There is a story, by, I think if I remember correctly, it was Rupa who had written the story on the Mandara Parvata, So everybody talks about the churning of the ocean. They talk about the role of Vasuki in that. They talk about the role of the Rakshasas and the Devas in that. Nobody thinks about the Mandara Parvata. What was going on in Mandara's mind, when she was being churned by the Rakshasas and the Devas on each side. So these are the kind of interesting stories that are there in Story Through My Eyes.
Right.
Yeah.
Great. And yeah, and I'm sure it was a great experience for you to edit it. And yeah, those who are joining now, please just let us know in the comments if you can see both of us and hear us clearly. Thank you. And yeah, moving on. I have read the story, and in fact, when you shared it with me for the first time, I had read it then, and now also I had read it again before the interview. I have to say that till the last line, you have given justice to the character of Mandodari and her perspective. So, could you please share a little bit about Mandodari's background? And like, did she also belong to the Rakshasa clan? And how did you think of this title, Mandodari, the mother who wasn't?
Right. Okay. So see, Mandodari belonged to the Asura clan. Okay.
Hmm.
And Asuras basically, if you read Amish Tripathi's first set of books, about Shiva, the Shiva trilogy. In that, he talks a lot about how the word Asura came into being. So Asura is actually Ahura, and they belong to the Persian community, the Zarathustra community, where they don't have the sound of sir in their language. So it's actually Ahura, and their god is called Ahura Mazda, right? So,
Oh,
and she is the Danav king Mayasur's daughter. And Maya was there in the Mahabharata and in the Ramayana more in the background, because even Mandodari was in the background. She was not really brought into the forefront of the story. And at the same time, he was also there in the Mahabharata because he was the one who designed the Maya Sabha, the Palace of Illusions for the Pandavas, right? So she is the daughter of, it is said that she is the daughter of the Danava king Mayasur and of the Apsara Hema. All right, so she's somebody who's got beauty with brains, and it was always said that she was one of those. She had two elder brothers, and she was the one who literally played peacemaker between the brothers at all times, and that's what's kind of there in several of parts of various epics that are there. So, given this, she was like not only quintessentially beautiful, but she also belonged to a royal lineage, and she had the Apsara, characteristics also in her, which gave her a lot of poise, which gave her a lot of emotional strength to manage her emotions and sentiments and react accordingly very well. And understand, Ravana was a very, very learned man. Okay, when he's so learned, you start thinking, you wonder why did he want to go and bring Sita when she's a married woman? They say that he had a lot of wives, so automatically he was, he's considered as a womanizer. But it was the norm those days. Even our gods had two wives, as it like the same energy divided into two. So polygamy was a very normal thing in those days, right?
right,
So
right.
given that, she was his first wife. She was the queen consort. She was the reigning queen, which means that she had that kind of emotional intelligence and intellect to match up to Ravana, right? So she was generally a very, very strong woman mentally, and she was also a very, very, intelligent woman. So given this characteristic trait, she was also very emotionally invested with her children. Now, when I went on to read the Adbhuta Ramayana, from where I got inspiration for the story, Adbhuta Ramayana and the Jaina Ramayana are two versions which say that Sita is Ravana's and Mandodari's daughter,
Right.
right? So when she loses her daughter, okay, how she loses it is there in the story. It's not something I'm going to reveal here. But when she loses her daughter and she's told that she's dead, the way she reacts to it later on, when she realizes the truth, and when she also loses her sons in the war, and the way she reacts to it, I think that is what brings out her character the most. The way she handles her emotions, the way she handles her turmoil, whether it is good or bad is a different thing. But given that moment, given the period that they were living in, and given the position that she was holding, and the way she brings her personality, I think that holds a lot of importance, and that was what I wanted to kind of bring out. Now, if you, I haven't, taken the story right to the end of the Ramayana, but if you go to see in a lot of texts, it is said that when Vibhishana was being crowned the king of Lanka, he was made to marry Mandodari. And this again, I think, is because it was not probably not because of the need to have a king because Vibhishana was already married, but possibly because it was also a matrilineal society that she comes from. So being the reigning queen, the king needed to marry the reigning queen to be the king.
Okay, yeah. So that is the most beautiful title that I have ever come across, and yeah, this story was probably the first story which was written for this book, and I remember that eventually this story itself was taken as an example, and it inspired other Pakians to craft their own stories. So you already said that how many versions of Ramayana are there, how many books of Ramayana are there in the ancient Indian text. I would like you to elaborate more on how many versions of Ramayanas are there,
Okay,
so
so
that because many people don't know about this.
right. So see, there are about 300 and odd documented versions of the Ramayana that are there, and not just in India. Okay, so if you're thinking about just India, it's not. You know that Lord Rama is prayed to in a lot of other countries. Like in Thailand, even their king is called Rama. So if you go to see, there are like while we have normally grown up reading either the Kamban Ramayana or the Valmiki Ramayana, right? It is said that the very first Ramayana was apparently given to Valmiki by sage Narada, and that is called the Mula Ramayana. Mula means first. All right. After that, there are a lot of other Ramayanas, like we have the Adbhuta Ramayana and the Sangadasa Ramayana, which I've taken inspiration from for the story Mandodari, the mother who wasn't. And in this, it is known as Sita is born with the name of Vasudeva Hindi, and she is born to Ravana and Vidyadhari Maya, which is the other name for Mandodari. And the other texts, I do remember there are a lot of other, versions. Like, just give me a moment. Let me just recollect them. There is one which is in the old Javanese script in Java, Sumatra Islands, Java. In the old Javanese script, it is called the Kakawin Ramayana. So you'll understand, there's so much of importance to it. In Laos, it is, in fact, Ramayana is like their national book, like how we have a national bird, national cover. It's a national book. It's called the Pralap Pralim. And in that, because Buddhism is so important, and the Ramayana story probably traveled to them with Buddhism, right? So it is known as, Rama being one of the incarnations of Lord Buddha. And it has a lot of Buddhist ideals in it. It's been adapted to that way. And there is also a Burmese version of the Ramayana. So there are like documented about 300, but undocumented, there are like a huge number. I would say somewhere in the thousands.
Okay. And I must say that since many people, I would say, most of the percentage of people in India don't know about this version because they are more influenced by the television and everything. So it really takes a lot of courage to write this story. So I really want to know from where did you got the courage to write this story?
As I said, it's very important to now start looking at things from a 360-degree perspective, right? So, if
Hmm.
Rama and Ravan had a war over Sita, the question is why? Why was Sita in the whole equation? If you want to look at Dionysus' story, which is also there in the book, what was it that made him antagonistic towards the gods on the Mount of
Right.
Apollo? Because it was Thor who actually protected Dionysus when his wife killed Dionysus' mother. Dionysus' mother was a mortal, and Thor is the king. He's a god, right? So Thor actually kind of cut his thigh and put the embryo of Dionysus in that and took him to life, took him to term for his birth. If you're talking about Shani, which was written by Abhijay, who was just like 12 years when he wrote this, and about his love story. You
Hmm.
need to look at things from a different perspective. It's not always unidimensional, and that is what gave me the courage. And ultimately, what we're writing is fiction, but if we can provoke readers to think differently, I think that is what's most important.
100%, I agree, and it was really enlightening to know about this version. And it's really the dots, we can connect the dots actually by reading the story.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
ma'am. And the next question is that you mentioned about Jat Karna ceremony in this story. So, can you tell us the meaning of this? What is Jat Karna ceremony?
Yeah, so Jatakaran basically is the ceremony which is usually done around the 11th day or after the child's birth, where they prepare the horoscope, right? So that is
Mm-hmm.
the day that the purohit or the learned person comes home, or the parents or family members take the child's time of birth, date of birth, place of birth, and the horoscope is made. And that is a very important and integral thing in Indian culture even today, especially among the Hindus, right? So,
Okay.
in this particular story, the Jatakarna ceremony plays a very, very important role, because even if you read the Adbhuta Ramayan, you'll see that that was the day when, or that was the moment when Ravana was told by the learned men that your daughter who has been born is going to
Hmm.
bring an end to the Asura clan. So kill her.
True. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that is the moment when Ravana's whole fatherly figure starts opening up, right? And there is a prelude to this as well, which is there in the story about how Mandodari's intuitions begin to work. So why,
Yeah, it does.
and then now when I read this particular piece of this Adbhuta Ramayana, right, that was when it started making sense. All our life we've been told that Janaka goes to the forest for hunting, and he finds a baby. When he's plowing, he finds a baby in a cart, or he probably saves her from the quicksand. But when I read this, it was like as if the puzzle was getting pieced together, because it made so much sense. Okay, he was probably trying to protect his daughter and handed her over to somebody else. How he handed her over is a different story. That's something you have to read the story to understand. But yeah, so that is why this Jatakarna ceremony plays a very, very important role, especially in the context of this story.
Yeah. 100% it does, and it is like a turning point in the story. And yeah, that brings me to the next question. I always wondered that could you pick out a common characteristic of Ravana from this particular story and the story when he tries to lift up mountain Kailash to take his beloved god Lord Shiva to his palace Lanka, which is full of comfort. So, any common characteristic could you pick up which is still relatable? People can relate to that. Anything?
Absolutely. See, as I said, Ramana has across multiple Ramayanas, he's somebody who's always come out as a very dedicated and passionate person. So even if you read the Valmiki Ramayana, towards the end, when Ravana is breathing his last, Rama actually advises Lakshmana saying, go and take his blessings and learn from him, gain knowledge from from him. Ravana was a very learned man. He was a massive Shiva Bhakta. He played the Veena very well. Like he was an exponent with the Veena, and he was an intellect par excellence. So that is what makes you think: how could someone like him make stupid decisions? I am questioning as a person of today. Probably these questions wouldn't have come up in the past. But today, when I can look at things from a 360-degree perspective, and when we have access to various texts that have different versions of the Ramayana, like for instance, if you read some of the texts that are there in the northeast of India, right, they say that Rama and Sita are brother and sister. It's probably the most blasphemous thing that anybody who is an avid bhakta of Rama would even want to imagine. But it is there. If people have written it, there must be some semblance of truth, or try to find out why it was written in that format. That is the questioning that needs to come in. So when you're talking about Ravana, and when he wanted to give all the possible luxuries even to his Ishtadevta, which was Lord Shiva, you also need to look at it from the perspective that even in the Ramayana, whichever Ramayana you read, he brings Sita to Lanka. She decides to stay in the Ashok Vatika and not enter his palace, and he never forces her.
Yeah,
he never forces her. He never forces himself upon her. That itself is a question as to why did he bring her to Lanka? Right? Is it because he was humiliated in during the Swayamvara? He can wreak revenge on Rama in any way, because Lanka was a huge country, very rich, very forward in their military capabilities. And you read a lot of texts of the Ramayana. Dasharatha's kingdom was not as big as this. There are others that talk about how big it was, but many others say that it's not as big as this. They could have just gone into, but why? So what I would say about Ravana's characteristic, with both the stories that we're talking about today, is that he was definitely a very intellectual person, very passionate, very dedicated, and he had a very focused view towards life.
I was always curious to know this, that what is the difference between Rakshas Gan, Dev Gan and Manushya Gan? Because we hear this term in Indian astrology and in these stories as well.
Right. So this is very interesting, and it's got a lot of mathematics involved in it. These are like, the constellations, the 27 constellations are divided into 3 groups. And the 3 groups are Rakshas Gan, Manushya Gan, and Dev Gan, and these have the massive characteristics. Okay. So it is said that basically in a horoscope, the position of the moon is what determines the gun or characteristic. So people born with a heavy Devgan characteristic are people who have a lot of do good qualities without expecting anything in return. People who are born in the Rakshas Gan are more self-centered. People born in the Manushya Gan have a balance of the two. They're somewhere in between the Devgan and the Rakshas Gan. So if you look at our mythology itself, if you look at all the stories, or even Bollywood stories or Hollywood stories or whatever, you have one villain, you have one hero, and then you have all the people in between who don't fall into either category, right? So it's basically representing the good, the evil, the people who get affected in between, and what are the dynamics that play out between these two, which can impact these Manushya Gan. So if you see in the Ramayana, Rama is a Devgan, Ravan is a Rakshas Gan. Everybody else in between are the Manushya Gan. If you take the Mahabharata, again, Pandavas are more like people with the Devgan, and the Kauravas are more with the Rakshas Gan. So Gan also means people. So it's like people carry 2 good qualities, people with self-centered qualities, and those in between who have a mix.
True, yeah, I completely agree with this. And is there any possibility for Manushya Gan to evolve into Devgan, or for even for Rakshas Gan to evolve into Devgan?
It's all there within us, if you go to see. None of us are truly good, none of us are truly bad. We all have those mixed qualities. It's about how these qualities are nurtured by the environment around us and our own self-consciousness. When a child is
Hmm.
born and start nurturing the child, you're very particular and you see this is right, this is wrong, don't do this, if you do this, this is what will happen. Those are the kind of things that start generating these qualities in a person. It is very wrong
Yeah.
to say that a person is a complete, has all the complete Rakshas gun or, has the complete Dev gun. All of us have a mix of the two. But when you are trying to tell a story, you have to portray it as one is bad. There should be one Shakal. There should be one, what's his name? Thakur. There should be one, Daku. There should be one Rahul. There should be one Raj. So you need a mix of everything.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, I completely agree that we all have all the qualities, and some of people, the Rakshasgan qualities are dominant, more dominant than their good qualities, and some the good qualities are more dominant than the bad ones, but everybody is a mixture of all these.
Right.
And yeah, thank you so much for being patient with this interview, ma'am. To you too, and to our viewers too, who are still with us in spite of all this network connection issues that we had.
Thank you so much, Shruti. It was lovely talking to you. And
Yeah,
viewers, please do pick up your copy of Story Through My Eyes. It's available on Amazon both in paperback as well as in Kindle format. Please do read
yeah,
it. It's a fabulous book, especially if you have teenage children or preteen children. It's simple language, very easy to read. I enjoyed editing the book. It gave me so much of knowledge and perspective into various characters, various stories that have been written by like a multitude of authors. So please do go ahead and pick up your copy. And Shruti, once again, thank you so much for having me on your show.
yeah. Most yeah. Everyone, this is the book that we were talking about, and I have given the Amazon link in our bio, so you can go and check out the book. And it's absolutely beautiful. I love each and every bit of this book. And thank you so much, ma'am, and thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.